This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so let us begin with Yaakov's epic dream, Parshat Vayetze, Vayivka b'makom. Let's go from the top. Someone want to take it for us in Hebrew, please? Kathy, why don't you lead off for us in Hebrew?
Okay. Vayetze Yaakov meber Sheva vayelech Harana. Vayivka b'makom vayelin sham kiva hashemesh vayikach me'avnei hamakom vayasem mela ashotav vayishka b'makom hahu.
Two more. Vayachalom, you're on a run.
Vayachalom v'hine sulam mutzav artza v'rosho magia hashemayma v'hine malachei Elohim olim v'yordim bo.
One
V'hine
more.
Hashem nitzav alav v'yomer ani Hashem Elohei Avraham avicha Velohei Yitzchak haaretz asher ata shochev alecha lecha et nena ulezar echa.
Beautiful. Let's take that in English, please. Beautiful, Kathy. Someone take it for us in English, please. Rose, you want to take it for us?
From the beginning, from 10?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jacob departed.
Jacob departed from Beer-sheba and went toward Haran. He encountered the place and spent the night there because the sun had set. He took from the stones of the place which he arranged around his head and lay down in that place. And he dreamt, and behold, a ladder was set earthward, and its top reached heavenward, and behold, angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, Hashem was standing over him, and he said, I am Hashem, God of Abraham, your father, and God of Isaac, and the ground upon which you are lying, to you will I give it, and to your descendants. Your offspring shall be as the dust of the earth, and you shall spread out powerfully westward, eastward, northward, and southward, and all the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you and by your offspring. Behold, I am with you. I will guard you wherever you go, and I will return you to this soil, for I will not forsake you until I will have done. And I keep going?
Yeah, just finish that sentence.
Okay. What I have spoken about you.
Perfect. So this was Jacob's dream. Just to get our perspective over here, like I mentioned before, we're going to double back a little later today and more next week to Jacob's receiving those brachot, those blessings that were actually intended for Esav. But because of that, Yaakov needed to run away. Esav wanted to kill him. And Yaakov needed to run away. And he's on his way to Haran, to the house of Lavan, who is the brother of his uncle Lavan, his mother Rivka's brother. And on the way there, he has this epic dream of the ladder, its feet on the earth, reaching up to the heavens, angels of God who are ascending and descending. What should strike us somewhat strange right now? A ladder with the angels, ascending and descending, right? We would expect the angels would first descend and then they would ascend. But the order is the angels were ascending and descending on it. Okay, Rashi learns simply that he was on his way out of the land of Israel, and there were angels that accompanied him in Israel, and there'd be different angels that would accompany him outside of Israel. So therefore, it was the Israeli angels that were heading back up, and it was the chutznik, the non-Israeli angels, that were now descending. But I want to go further into this. What does this ladder represent? This is an epic dream. Jacob's about to be leaving. He's left the comforts of the house of Isaac, his father, and his mother, Rivka. He's going now out into hostile terrain. He's going to have a lot of issues encountering Lavan and his marriages and the tribes and raising the children. There is a lot that is going on. And right now he needs to have this message of the dream. What is this message of the dream? What is this meant to show him? And why a ladder as opposed to a ramp? I guess an elevator wasn't something that they could have shown him in those days. A ramp could have been shown to him. Angels, why do angels need ladders? Don't angels have wings? I don't know. All the angels I've seen in pictures, they all had wings. Right? You cannot be a self-respecting angel without wings. That's clear, right? So, right, why do they need this ladder? Why can't they just, give their flap and they go up and they go down? What is it that this was meant to be showing him? Any ideas out there? So let's take a look. Our Art Scroll Chumash gives us some very, very nice. If you look on page 145 towards the bottom there, right, under the translation of the Chumash, they have a number of different commentaries that they bring. And the first column on 145 towards a little past the middle, verse 12, symbolism of Jacob's dream. Right? The dreams mentioned in scripture are vehicles of prophecy, otherwise the Torah would not cite them. Jacob's dream at Mount Moriah symbolized the future of the Jewish people and man's ability to connect himself to God's master plan. Among the many interpretations of the dream are these. Number one, Mount Sinai. The ladder alludes to Sinai. Since the words Sinai
But,
and
Rabbi, we
Sulam,
can't hear you. You're breaking up. Your words are breaking up.
okay. Everybody else hears me? If everybody else hears me, so
Yes.
that might be,
I hear you.
okay, so Linda, that might be on your end more than on my end. I'm not sure. Okay, so again, number one, Mount Sinai. The ladder alludes to Sinai. The angels represent Moses and Aaron. God stood atop the ladder, just as he stood atop Sinai to give the Torah. Okay, so in other words, according to this, Yaakov was being shown that you are about to father a nation that is going to have that Sinai experience, that we will be ascending as we ascended Mount Sinai, Moses and Aaron ascending and descending. That works with the ascending, descending order, right? You are about to father a nation that will reach up to the heavens, represented by Mount Sinai, reach up to the heavens and bring down God's word, God's directions, God's instructions to us. That's what this ladder represented. Beautiful. That we are meant to go reach the heavens and bring it down to here. Because it's not enough, right? We can't be in heaven. We have to bring heaven down here, make this world heavenly. Good. Okay, the four kingdoms. Okay, the land's greatness. Jacob was shown that angels protect him and Israel were going back up, right? Replaced by lesser angels who would escort him. And this was reversed later on. Okay, so according to that, this is letting Jacob know and letting us know that we think we're alone, but God is always with us, and God's messengers are always with us. Okay, that we are not alone. The famous, I don't think it's a Jewish source, but it's good, right? Of the person who was shown, who had a difficult life and was shown a vision, a heavenly vision of his life. And there were these footsteps alongside him, wherever, all along. And that was God walking along that person. But the person in this vision saw that at the most difficult times in their life, there was only one set of footprints. And he said, Kayli, Kayli, lama zavtani, God, God, why have you deserted me? And he said, no, you're misunderstanding. It was during those times that I lifted you up and I was carrying you. Right? So these idea of the angels ascending and other angels descending was giving Yaakov the vision that no matter where he was not alone. Right? And we always say a Jew is never lost. We might not be where we planned to be, where we thought we were, but we're exactly where God wants us to be. And we've got to make the best and do the best with that situation when it comes to us. Jacob's uniqueness, Ramban says that it was letting Jacob know, that everything that takes place in this world is heavenly directed. And the angels finish their mission, they go up, and other angels come back down, that there is nothing that is haphazard. There is nothing that just, I can't believe, what are the chances? Right? Everything is divinely orchestrated. We call that hashgacha pratis, this divine orchestration of all that goes on. And that doubles back to our lunch and learn last week about anger, and that how anger is like idolatry, because I'm angry because I think it should have happened differently. This is not what should have happened. This is wrong. I.e., if I were running the world, I would do it a lot differently. I would do it a lot better. And that's how that makes its way over into what we call tantamount to idolatry. Good. So these are all beautiful, beautiful explanations. The Nefesh HaChaim, Rav Chaim of Volozhin, who was the quintessential student, disciple of the Vilna Gaon, of the Gaon of Vilna, he explains that what Yaakov saw in this vision was mankind. That's what he saw. The ladder is a human being. The ladder, its feet were on the earth, and its head reached up to the heavens. And a human being, we walk this earth, but we are not, whereas an animal, oops, is that photo back again? Did I show the photo again? Sorry, 1 second. There we go. Okay. So we think a human being is just a human being. An animal is an earthly creature. The Maharal says, behema, that's the Hebrew word for an animal, bet hey mem hey, is ba ma. Bet hey ba ma. What you see is what you get. What's there is what's there, nothing else. It is an earthly creature, and what's going on here? It is an earthly creature, and it hovers. The animals all hover over the earth. A human being, we stand erect, we stand straight. We stand, that's our amidah, our most focused tefillah part of prayer is called amidah. We stand. We need to stand because we traverse earth up to heaven. We stand with our feet on the ground and our head reaches the heavens. Even though I'm only 5'9", but our head reaching the heavens is actually referring to the soul of a person that shoots out from that person and reaches up into the heavenly realm. So we see the lower 5 to 6 feet of a person, but actually the person extends far beyond. And we connect up to the heavens, we connect to God. And the ladder that Yaakov saw is a human being who walks on earth and connects to the heaven. That was the vision that Yaakov needed to understand what is a human being. The angels ascending and descending, he explains, is a very powerful concept. And that is the spirituality of the world is dependent on us, on mankind. We either bring the level up or we drag it down. And some of the commentators that Beis Halevi explains, back by Noach, we said the whole world was filled with this immorality, right? Even the animals, the sages say, even the animals were crossing species in their sexual behavior. And everyone asks, what does that mean? How can it be? I understand human beings, we could have desires, we could have deviant desires, but animals just work on instinct. How can animals be cross mating? And the Beis Halevi explains that if the human beings are acting in a spiritually degraded manner, it drags the whole world down, including even the animals. So the angels ascend and the angels descend. We could bring the spiritual level of the world up. That's the ideal. That's what's mentioned first. Or we can also drag it down. But that is the mission that Yaakov is being sent upon now. And he explains that is the idea of Tselem Elokim, that we, like God, in the image of God, we are God-like, that we affect the world. We bring the world up, or we can bring the world down. Why? Let me ask you your thoughts. Why a ladder as opposed to a ramp, as opposed to a pole? Why specifically a ladder?
Okay, so I was just going to say that maybe sometimes we have to take steps and go up a bit at a time. Maybe we're not ready to take the next step and connection wise, and we grow.
Beautiful, beautiful thought, Rose. Anybody else? I saw some other green cameras for a minute, but then everyone else faded. Yeah. So a ladder, like Rose said, gives us the ability to go up a little bit, and as opposed to a ramp where I'm off balance, right? I take a step, but I'm still off balance because of the slope of the ramp, or a pole, where I'm still just kind of holding on. A ladder gives us a chance to stop, to rest, to make sure I'm steady before I then go and take the next step. And that is such an important message, because so often people will say, oh, this is right, and therefore they want to scamper up. And the problem in doing that is, if you don't get your balance at each step, then as quickly as you scampered up that ladder, that's how precarious you will be, and how vulnerable and dangerous you will be in a situation that you might just fall right back down. And very often we see that people who take steps too quickly, it ends up not lasting. It's like a jacket that they put on and a jacket that they take off, and it's as if they never wore that jacket. And what a person needs to do with a ladder is you go up a step and you have your balance, and then you steady, another step, another step. And I always say, if I'm at the top of a ladder and I want you to get up, I want you to climb that ladder resolutely but carefully and in a balanced, steady manner. And that's Hashem at the top, that he wants us to reach that ladder. And like Nefesh Chaim said, we determine the spirituality of this world, if it's going up or it's going down. But that's as we are rooted on the earth. In other words, it's in our daily earthly dealings that we have the ability to do that. And this also speaks to this concept that we have throughout Judaism, Asher Kiddishanu b'mitzvotav. Whenever we're making a bracha, a blessing before performing a mitzvah, the blessing is Asher Kiddishanu b'mitzvotav. You have sanctified us with your mitzvot. Our mitzvot involve us, involve the world. It's not that we think and we do, right? But it's not that we think, but it's that we do. I always say Shabbat, Shabbos. It's not that we just believe in God as a creator. We do our belief in God as a creator by our stopping to create on that seventh day on Shabbat as God stopped creating. And therefore turning on a light switch. It's not work. It's not tiring, but it is creation. It is creative activity. It is our dominion, our control of nature. And therefore, as God stepped back and stopped altering and changing nature, stopped creating on that seventh day, we too stop creating. That's how we do our belief in God as a creator. It's always with our feet on the ground. It's always with our involvement in the world. That is how we ascend that ladder and bring ourselves up to the heights. So that was the dream that Yaakov had, and right, this is the blessing of Abraham and Isaac. Okay, now with that, before we go further on to Yaakov meeting up with Lavan, let us double back for a moment to that troubling issue of the brachot, of the blessings that Isaac, Yitzchak, intended to give to Esav, but gave to Yaakov because Yaakov came in as Esav. Okay? And it's a complicated, difficult situation. Okay? Esav had sold the Bechorah to Jacob earlier on. Esav had not been interested in that Bechorah, in the firstborn rights. Now, you might say, yes, but he did it under duress. He came in from the field and he was tired, and Yaakov starts talking and he wants some food. Yaakov had prepared some food, and Yaakov says, I'll give you the food, I'll give you the soup, but sell the birthright to me. He says, I'm going to die. What do I need the birthright? So you might argue and say it was done under duress. And therefore that was a sneaky, wrong, immoral move by Jacob. So just on that, I want to point out two things. So if you want, let's go back. Let's take a look at that for a moment. On page 126. Verse 29. 126, 127. Perek Chafei, chapter 25, verse 29. Vayazid Yaakov Nazid. Yaakov simmered a stew. Esav came in from the field, and he was exhausted. Esav said to Yaakov, pour into me now some of the very red stuff. I'm exhausted. Therefore, he called his name Edom. Jacob said, sell as this day your birthright to me. And Esau said, look, I'm going to die. Sort of what use to me is a birthright. So was Esau going to die? The pasuk in 29 said, which is the Torah, the narrator, God, right, letting us know what was his situation. He was tired. He was exhausted. Ayef. Ayef is tired. English says exhausted. Fair enough. Ayef actually means tired more than exhausted. We can go with exhausted also. Do you die when you're exhausted? No. What happens when you're exhausted and you're tired? You fall asleep. You don't die. In the next pasuk, Esau said, give me some of that stuff because I am tired. I'm exhausted. I'm worn out. Jacob says, sell as this day your birthright to me. Esau said, look, I'm going to die of what used to me as a birthright. So if I'm going to die, our sages right away see, who's talking about dying over here? He's tired. He's described as tired. He self-describes as tired or exhausted. No one's dying here. What is this death that he's referring to? So our sages understood that he was saying is this birthright has a lot of responsibilities that I'm not going to be up to the standards. And therefore it will lead to my demise, it will lead to my death. What do I need it for? Okay. Either way, though, let's turn the page now. Yaakov said, swear to me as this day. He swore to me, sold his birthright to Jacob. Now, let's say I am in a desperate situation and someone takes advantage of my desperate situation and forces me to relinquish something in order to get this person to help me in my desperate situation. Fair enough. I agreed to do it because I'm in a desperate situation. Once I'm no longer in that desperate situation, how do I feel at that point? I'm angry at that person. I'm angry. Why did you take advantage of me like that? You knew that I was desperate. You knew that, right? I'm lying on the floor there. I'll call. I broke. I was in an accident. I'll call 911 for you if you give me $1,000. All right, I'll give you $1,000. Call 911. But once I'm stabilized, I think back in that person. I say that was disgusting. That was disgusting. I was in such a desperate situation. That's how you take advantage of me.
You feel robbed.
I was robbed, and you were robbed. So if Esau was being taken advantage over here, once he's eaten, once he had to drink, once he's no longer in this desperate situation, if it was so desperate, how would he feel about what just happened? Like Rose said, I was robbed. You took that bechorah from me. How dare you? But what does the next pasuk say? The Yaakov Natan le'Esav. Jacob gave Esav bread. Unizir Hashem, lentil stew. Vayochal, he ate. And he drank. At this point, he's not desperate anymore. He's feeling just fine. He's sated. He's filled. He ate. He drank. He's not dying. He's not even exhausted. He's not even tired. What did he do? Vayakam. He got up. Vayelach. And he walked. And he left. Vayivez Esav et habechora. And what did he do? He spurned. He degraded. He dismissed this birthright. So what do we see over here? Esav did not value it. He didn't feel like Rose said, I was robbed. I gave up nothing of value and I got a good meal. Hey, that was a great deal. That worked out. Nevertheless, you might still argue and say, fair enough. That's from Esav's perspective. But why did Jacob try to get the bechorah from him? And I once heard a very, very interesting explanation. Abraham had two sons, the older Yishmael, the younger Isaac. Who became the bechor, so to speak? Isaac. Did Yishmael sell it to Isaac? He did not. Isaac was worthy. He became the bechor. He became the firstborn. Let's go forward a generation now. Yaakov has 12 children. The 11th one to be born is Joseph. He becomes the Bechor. He becomes the firstborn, so to speak. Did Reuven sell it to him? No. Joseph was worthy. He became the firstborn without there being any sale. Let's go another generation. Joseph has two sons, Ephraim and Menashe. Actually, it's Menashe and Ephraim. Who's the older one? Menashe is older. Ephraim is younger. Who becomes the Bechor, so to speak? Who had Jacob's right hand placed on his head? When we give a blessing to our children, to our sons, we place Ephraim before Menashe. Ephraim became the number one person. He became the Bechor, so to speak. Did Menashe sell it to him? He did not. So it's a meritocracy. It's not based on a sale. So why did Jacob have Esav sell the Bechorah to him? So I think Rav Yitzchak Sher says very beautifully, he did this as an act of kindness to Esav. Esav was going to lose it no matter what. He was not worthy of it. But like this, it was a face-saving measure for Esav that it wasn't taken away from me. I sold it. I gave it up. That feels a lot better. I could retain my self-dignity a lot better if I gave something up as opposed to something being removed, taken away from me. Okay, we go on later though, and Yitzchak, let's go to page 138. Yitzchak wants to give a blessing to Esav. Jacob comes in, impersonating Esav. I am Esav, your firstborn. Now it might be, I am Esav, your firstborn, because I bought the Bechorah, I bought that firstborn, the privileges, and therefore I am Esav, the one who you want to give the bracha to, but he does deceive his father. There's no way around it. He deceived his father. Now, keep in mind, look at the blessing that Isaac planned to give to Esav, but gives instead to Jacob. Page 138, 139, verse 28. This is the blessing that was meant, in Isaac's mind, meant for Esav. And what does he say? May God give you the dew of the heavens, the fatness of the earth, abundant grain and wine. People will serve you. Regimes will prostrate themselves to you. Be a lord to your kinsmen. Your mother's son will prostrate to you. Cursed be those who curse you. Blessed be those who bless you. This is a blessing all about this world. Jump ahead. Esav comes in. He's furious. He starts to wail. He starts to cry. His father says, your brother came and received your bracha. Esav says, I'm going to kill Yaakov, which what leads us into this Parsha, this Parsha V'yetze, Yaakov's leaving when he had that dream about the ladder. Rivka says to Yitzchak, hearing that Esav wants to kill Jacob, says, we've got to send him away. I can't have him marry the wives that Esav has married. We need to send him back to my family. Let's send him. The first recorded conversation between Yitzchak, Isaac, and Jacob after the blessings, and we would expect the first words to him would be, why did you trick me? Nothing of the sort. Let's look on page 143, chapter 28, verse 1. So Isaac summoned Jacob and blessed him, instructed him, said to him, do not take a wife from the Canaanite woman. Arise, go to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take a wife from there, from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. Fair enough. And then he says, and may Kel Shakai bless you, make you fruitful, and make you numerous, and may you be a congregation of peoples. May he grant you the blessing of Abraham to you and to your offspring with you, that you may possess the land of the sojourns which God gave to Abraham. This is a very different blessing that was always meant for Jacob. What blessing is that? The blessing of Abraham, which is nationhood and land. That's the blessing of Abraham. Nationhood and the land of Israel. That was not meant to be given to Esav. When he gave the blessing thinking it was Esav, it was a blessing of dew and fat and power and grain and wine. And when he's blessing Jacob, this is the blessing of Abraham. So it's clear that, as we just saw also in the dream, I am the God of Abraham, your father, the God of Isaac, the land, etc., will be given to you, right? This will be given to you and to your descendants, and you will multiply. That blessing of nationhood and land was always meant for Jacob. That's the blessing that Isaac gave to Jacob. That is what Jacob saw in his dream there. But with all that having been said, Jacob deceived his father to receive that blessing. Now, the Targum explains that Rivka had sent him to do that, even though it's not so clear in the verses, but that Rivka had a prophecy very back in the beginning of Toldot, last week's Parsha, when there was all this commotion, turbulence inside of her during the pregnancy. She was told 2 nations are inside of you in your womb, and the older will serve the younger. And therefore she understood that as a prophecy, as a mission, that she's got to propel the younger in front of the elder. She needs to propel Jacob in front of Esav. So she sent him to go do that. This was the will of God, and Jacob followed through and did that. Okay, that's how the Targum explains it. But let's take a look over here. After Esav walks in on page 140. Sorry, on page 138. Esav comes in, 138, 139. It says, here, I brought you the food, bless me. Right? And it was, verse 34, when Esav heard his father's words, Vayitzak tzaka gidola umara ad ma'od. Right? He let out a great, bitter cry, a very great and bitter cry. And he said, Father, bless me also. And he said, your brother came with cleverness and took your blessing. And he said, he tricked me twice. Right? Do you not have a bracha left from me? Look on page 140, verse 38. And Esav said to his father, have you but one blessing, father? Bless me too, father. Vayisa Esav kolo vayef. Esav raised his voice and wept. Okay. Let's now go back to our Parsha. Parsha Vayetze. Yaakov has the dream that we discussed before. Then he continues on to the house of Lavan, his uncle. He comes to the well, and there were 3 flocks of tzon, of sheep there. And they would all gather there. Yaakov says to them, page 148, 149, the shepherds came, my brothers, where are you from? They say, we came from Haran. Do you know Lavan? They said, oh, do we know Lavan? Is everything well? Sure. And behold, Rachel, his daughter, is coming with the sheep. Verse 7. And he said to them, why are you, right, gathering in the flocks now? There's still a lot of time left. And they said, no, we can't. We all have to get together. And then we remove this large stone from the well, and then we give the flocks to drink. Rachel arrives, verse 9. Verse 10, it was when Yaakov saw Rachel, the daughter of Lavan, his uncle, and he saw that, and he drew close to that well. He removed the stone from the well, and he gave them all to drink. Vayishak Yaakov l'Rachel, and then Jacob kissed Rachel. Vayisa et kolo vayef. And then he raised his voice and he cried. Wow. Vayisa et kolo vayef. We have those exact words back on page 140. What did Esav do at the end of verse 38? Vayisa Esav kolo vayef. Same exact words. Esav lifted up his voice and he cried. Yaakov, vayisa et kolo, lifted up his voice and he cried. Why is he crying? What happened? He just met Rachel. He gave everyone to drink. Why is he crying? Rashi explains, gives two reasons. First reason, Rashi says, he saw through divine insight, divine knowledge, that this wife, this woman who he would marry, he would not be buried alongside her. Rachel was not buried in Mamrat HaMachpelah, in the tomb of the patriarchs. He recognized that he would not have her fully. There would be something lacking in their connection. Number one. Another reason, Rashi says, he's crying because he came empty-handed. Eliezer, the servant of his father Isaac, when he came to this house to bring back his mother Rivka, he was laden with gifts and he had the document. He was rich, he was wealthy, but he had nothing. Why did he have nothing? Because Eliphaz, who was the son of Esav, was told by Esav, his father, run after Isaac and run after Jacob and kill him. But Eliphaz, who was brought up in the house of Isaac, did not want to kill his uncle Jacob. So Jacob said to him, a poor person is almost like a dead person. Take all my things and I'll be like, and it'll be as if you killed me. So he's crying because he came empty-handed. Why was he empty-handed? Because of Eliphaz, who was sent there by Esav, because of the deception. Even if we're going to say that it was the right thing to do, he had bought the Bechorah, and his mother said, you have to do it. I have this prophecy. Even with all of that, he engaged in an act of deception. Even if the end justified the means, even if we'll say that, there is a price to pay for the means. There is a price to pay. There is an effect of that deception. Esav, the Torah uses the same exact words. Vayisa kolo vayef. He lifted his voice and he cried. You made Esav lift his voice and cry. You will lift your voice and cry. Why? Because of this deception, you've come empty-handed. Because of this deception, You have to work for 7 years before you can marry Rachel. And instead you married Leah, had to work another 7 years. And that's why also you were not buried next to Rachel. You were buried next to Leah. That also came about because of this deception. And it keeps on going. He wants to work. He wants to marry Rachel, but he's empty-handed. So what's the agreement? He'll work 7 years, and then he will marry Rachel. But what happens in the end? Page 151. After 7 years later, page 151, verse 22. So Laban gathered all the people of the palace, of the place, and made a feast. And it was in the evening that he took Leah, his daughter, and brought her to him. And he consorted with her. Right? We, at a Jewish wedding, we look under the veil, make sure we have the right one. Okay? Here he had the wrong one. He married Leah. And it was in the morning, verse 25, behold, it was Leah. So he said to Laban, what is this you have done to me? Was it not for Rachel that I worked for you? Lama rimitani, why have you deceived me? Page 153. Vayomer Lavan says, verse 26, Lo yasechem bimkomenu, la teta tzira lifnei abichira. That's not how we do things in our place. We don't put the younger one before the older one. What's Lavan doing? Lavan is rubbing it in Yaakov's face. I don't know where you come from, but in a proper place like this, we don't give the younger one before the older one. Yaakov deceived his father, pushing the younger one before the older one. He is deceived. And the older daughter is married off before the younger daughter. According to the Medrash, just 1 second. Yeah. According to the Medrash, and it was in the morning that it was Leah instead of Rachel. The Medrash, the Tosfos explains over here, that whole night Leah was acting as if she was Rachel. And then in the morning, he saw that it was Leah. He said to her, Ramiyata bat Ramai. He said to her, I'm reading now from the Medrash that the Tosfos brings. You don't have this. He said to her, you are a deceptive person, the daughter of a deceiver. At night, I called you Rachel and you answered me. Now I called you Leah and you answer me. She said back to him, Late gavar de let talmidui. Every man has his disciples. I learned from the best, she said to him. Avuch, your father called you Esav, vanitale, and you answered. He called you Jacob, vanitale, meaning, mimcha lamati, I learned it from you. We see this comes back to haunt Jacob. Even if we'll say that he was correct, he was justified, but there are ramifications that result from that. He deceived his father. He was deceived. So then he works, he waits 7 days, he marries Rachel, and then he has to work another 7 years, and the children are born. The one he loves the most is Yosef. Yosef is the firstborn of his beloved Rachel, and he shows him favoritism. And then, if we zoom up a little bit, right, that favoritism in Parshat Vayeshev leads to the sale of Yosef. All of this is unfolding as a result of the deception. Well, the brothers get rid of Yosef. And what do? Page 206, 207. Once again, Yaakov is deceived. Verse 31, page 207, 206, Lamed Aleph. After they sold Yosef, they took Yosef's tunic, Vayishchetu Seir Izim, and they slaughtered a goat. They dipped it into the blood. They sent that to their father and said, we found this. Identify, if you please. Is it your son's tunic or not? He recognized it and said, my son's tunic. A savage beast devoured him. Joseph, Taraf Yosef. Yosef has been torn to bits. Once again, what happens? Yaakov is deceived again by his own sons. He deceived his father. His children deceived him. Who was the lead deceiver over here with the tunic of Joseph? None other than Judah. He deceived his father. He was the one who deceived his father. Well, what happens right after that? Judah leaves the family, and then he marries a girl named Tamar off to his son, who dies off to his second son. In the end, what happens? She deceives Yehuda. See, even sometimes we have to do something, but it's done through deception. It's done through means that are not as they should be. Even if we'll say it's the right thing that needs to be done, there are repercussions. There is that ripple effect. And the Torah is showing us this ripple effect. The Medrash is showing us. The Torah using the same words, Vayisa kolo vayek, he lifted his voice and he cried. This reverberates through time, through the generations. And the last point I'll show on this, I've shared with you guys before. Esav's son was Eliphaz. Eliphaz's son was Amalek. Amalek's great grandson was Haman. Take a look on page 1255 if you've got the Stone Chumash, Megillat Esther, chapter 4, verse 1. Mordechai learned all that had been done. 1255, chapter 4, verse 1. Mordechai learned all that had been done, and Mordechai tore his clothes and put on sackcloth. He had heard about the decree that Haman had sent out for the annihilation, for the final solution of the Jewish people. Put on sackcloth with ashes. He went out into the midst of the city. Vayizak za'aka gidola umara. And he cried a great and bitter cry. Interesting. We had those words, those very words. We have Esav crying twice. Hold the place there. Look back to page 140. We had Vayisa Esav kolo vayef. Esav lifted up his voice and cried. And we had Yaakov crying at the well with Rachel with the same exact words. And go back to 138. When Esav first hears about what happened, verse 34, Vayitzak tzaka gedola umara ad ma'od. And he cried out a great and bitter cry. Mordechai, Vayizak zaka gedola. umara. Esav, vayitzak tzaka gedola umara. The same exact words. Vayizak, Zayin, and Sadi, slight different. They both mean to cry out. By Esav, it's vayitzak tzaka gedola umara. By Mordechai, it's vayizak tzaka gedola umara. But essentially the same exact words. Esav cried, the Torah uses the words to describe it. Mordechai cries, the same words. Esav cries again, Yaakov cries again. Next week we will see how Yaakov deals with this deception when he reunites with Esav. But right now we see the trajectory of Yaakov. We see the dream, the role he's going to play. But the deception, even if we'll say that it was the right thing to do, it's what he had to do. He had to listen to his mother. He had to listen to the prophecy, and he had bought it. With all of that, he caused tremendous pain to others, to Esav, through deception. And deception comes back to him over and over and over. Deception comes back and hurts him. Actually, one last point, an incredible teaching from Rav Elchanan Wasserman. We are taught that truth stands, falsehood does not stand. And we know that nothing goes into our Pesach matzot but flour and water. And we know that blood is absolutely prohibited, and all of our kosher meat needs to be salted, that there is no blood. And the Torah says over and over, don't eat blood. It's prohibited for a Jew to have blood. So if falsehood has no standing, how could this falsehood of this blood libel that the Jews kill a Christian child, or then the Muslims adopted it kills a Muslim, who knew that we kill a child and put the blood into our matzah? It's so outlandish. It's so far gone. We don't have blood in anything. And we don't have anything in the matzah. Blood in the matzah is just ridiculous. But if falsehood does not have the ability to stand, how has this falsehood stood for so many generations until today? In the Muslim world, many places still spout out this blood libel. And Rav Elchanan Wasserman says, because we deceived, because Yehuda, the tribes, deceived Yaakov when it came to blood, showing him the blood-dipped tunic of Joseph and deceived him with that. Since we deceived with blood, therefore, that's what gives legs, that's what gives strength to this incredible lie, incredible falsehood, incredible lie, that it goes throughout the generations. So this deception, this original deception, which led to that deception, that we are still suffering from that today. Yeah. Okay, my friends. Even if the end justifies the means, you have to be so careful with means. If it's causing pain, if it's involving deception, we have to be so careful with that. Okay, my friends. We will call it over here. A good day, everybody. Kathy, could we have a next week after class? Would you have time for us to have a virtual coffee to have a chance to talk? Okay, so let's schedule it. Okay, good.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Good seeing you, Kathy and Rose. Everyone else I didn't get to see, but
Thank you.
you're there.
Thank you.
And a Shavua Tov, everybody.
Shavua
Thursday,
Tov.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you very much.
Thursday, Thanksgiving, for those who want, we will be having a lunch and learn. Those who can't make it, I understand. But at 1 o'clock, we'll have a lunch and learn on Thanksgiving, on the idea of gratitude. So those who can join us, we will be having lunch and learn Thursday at 1 p.m. A good
Thank you,
day,
Rabbi.
everybody. Shavuot
Bye.
Tov.
Shavuot
Shavua
Tov.
Tov.
Shavuot Tov. Shavuot Tov.